Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a list of 10 different fantasy duologies. I will say that fantasy duologies are more common in young adult than adult. Recently I've done a couple of videos going over a bunch of different standalone fantasy books, and I broke it up by age range. So there were 25 for young adult and 25 for adult. And for today, it's going to be a mix. There are going to be more young adult than adult, but I did try to make sure that there was a little bit of both. Jumping into it, the first two are both by V.E. Schwab, and that would be what I believe is technically called the Villains series, and then Monsters of Verity. Monsters of Verity is made up of The Savage Song and Our Dark Duet, and then of course Vicious and Vengeful for the Villains series. So this Savage Song and Our Dark Duet is the young adult duology by V.E. Schwab. This one is perfect to read in the fall, especially if you're a mood reader and you're looking for something kind of creepy to pick up in maybe the month of October around Halloween. We follow what is basically our world, but there was something that occurred that caused monsters to come into existence as a result of terrible acts. And depending on the kind of terrible act that a person commits, it creates a different kind of monster. And whenever there's something like some form of a mass killing, that's when you get the most extreme kind of monster. And we follow two main perspectives. One is a human girl whose father runs part of the country. And then the other section of the country is run by somebody who has a monster for a son. And this particular monster is somebody who can pass as a human, but his father is much kinder and he's very kind, and so it sort of defies expectations. And you see these two characters, these two young people interact. They're trying to grapple with society, with the ways in which people view them, and you also just see this friendship blossom between these two characters. Vicious and Vengeful, they're two of my favorite books. I absolutely love these. They will make you unsure if you should be rooting for anybody. So the setup for the first one is we follow two young men who were best friends when they were in college. Something clearly has occurred because now in present day, they want to kill each other. And you don't really know what happened that made them go from being best friends to now them wanting to harm one another. But it would seem it has something to do with an experiment that has gone wrong. So there are conspiracy theories about individuals that they call EOs or extraordinary, people that have perhaps gained powers of some kind. And they decide, Eli and Victor, our main characters, that they're going to try and see if EOs exist and if they can become one. And that is the experiment that is where you're assuming everything went wrong between them, but you don't actually know. And the way the story is written is it's a split timeline. Both the first and the second end up having split timelines, meaning you have past and present, but past is made up of 10 years ago, 10 minutes ago, 7 months ago. It sort of goes back and forth, and you would think it would be disorienting, but once you sort of get your feet on the ground, I think it's really exciting and really interesting, and I think it makes for a really cool reading experience. After that, we have Raybearer and Redemptor. So these are following a young woman named Tarisai, and her mother has basically had Tarisai with this magical hold over her. She is the result of being born of both her mother and a man who was a djinn, and this djinn was expected to fulfill wishes, and so now the main character, Tarisai's mother, has the ability to basically ask something of her daughter that she must fulfill. And it's a really, really terrible way to treat your child, but the mother has certain expectations for what she wants Tarisai to do. She has this plan, and that involves killing another person, Tarisai specifically, killing another person. In order to do this, Tarisai must get close to this individual. This individual is also not just some random person, but it's an important individual for society. And Tarisai grows to like this person, and she considers them a really good friend. And she does not want to go through with this magical command, essentially. And so she does everything she can to block this out. But the whole time you're reading, you're wondering, is she going to be able to block this out forever? Why does her mother seem so set on killing what seems to be a very nice boy, basically? And I really appreciated the found family in this story, the emphasis on friendship in the story. Next up, we have All the Stars and Teeth and All the Tides of Fate. I think my favorite part of this particular duology were the descriptions. So if you're somebody who likes a sea-centered story, definitely give this series a try. On the back of the first one, it says Princess, Pirate, Stowaway, Mermaid, the crew makes the queen. And I think that those are very brief but accurate ways of highlighting what you're going to get in this story. But back to the descriptions. There are a lot of sea-centered stories that exist in fantasy. This one, how it describes the different islands, how it describes the culture from one island to the next, how the seashells and how the various mermaid scales or things like that, how everything is described or how people do their hair or wear their clothes is so fun to read about. It's just so vibrant and colorful. So I really liked the descriptions. The setup for the story is we follow a girl who is heir to the throne, and it's very important that she proves that her soul magic, which is the most important magic from their island kingdoms, that her soul magic, she has a good grasp on it. However, when she's meant to prove herself, something goes wrong, and now she has formed an alliance with a pirate, and she is trying to do what she can to prove that she is the most suitable to rule, while also making a deal with him that she will help him in his desires, which may involve trying to restore his own magic. I am definitely cheating a little bit on this next one. It is not formally considered a duology, but I think you can definitely treat it as one, and that would be the collections of short stories by Andrzej Sapkowski within the Witcher saga. So if you don't know, the Witcher series starts with 2 collections of short stories, and then from there it turns into a series, and the next 5 books are part of a series. And the collections of short stories, I am not typically a short story person. I rarely enjoy them. But Andrzej Sapkowski, not only does he write exceptionally when it comes to short stories, but I think for me, that's where his writing shines. There's so many fantastic moments, great writing, a lot of wit within these short stories. The main series itself, one of the complaints a lot of people have, is that you start to follow so many other characters and you don't get as much of Geralt. You don't get as much as the actual literal Witcher from the story. And you're not going to have that problem with the collections of short stories. You don't have to keep going with the series. You can just read them. They're so good. As a result of having this on the list, because I know I'm kind of sort of cheating, I decided to include a sci-fi bonus recommendation, and that would be Warcross and Wildcard. So there are going to technically be 11 duologies mentioned in this video. So Warcross and Wildcard are sci-fi. We follow a young girl who is just trying to get by. She's a very skilled hacker, and she definitely uses her abilities to try and make some money on the side. She has a hard time keeping with traditional jobs. There is this particular game that has basically taken over the world. Everybody's obsessed with this game, but there is a formal tournament that takes place, and our main character sort of accidentally hacks herself into these games, this tournament, and she does so in a way that catches the attention of the people running it, and they actually want to employ her to catch another hacker. After that, we have what is not only a great duology, but one of my favorite stories of all time, and that would be Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. So you probably need no introduction when it comes to this duology. You follow a young man named Laszlo Strange who believes in this place called Weep. Everybody else thinks this is just a mythical place, but Laszlo 100% believes that it exists and that it is real, and he has this obsession with discovering everything he can about Weep. And one day he has an opportunity to discover if Weep is indeed real, and it's through his expertise and all his knowledge that he has gained over the years about Weep that allow him this opportunity. And while you have that going on, you also are introduced to a girl who is blue, who seems to be isolated along with a few other people. You don't know where they are, you don't know what's going on, but it just seems to be them and no one else. And you don't know how these characters are going to relate to one another, but how everything comes together is just so interesting. It's such a unique story. It's truly unlike anything else I've ever read, and Laini Taylor's writing is gorgeous, beautiful, stunning. If you are somebody who likes beautiful writing, then Laini Taylor is the writer for you. For those of you who are fantasy romance fans, definitely check out the Bridge Kingdom and Traitor Queen. So if you look up this series, you'll see that after this there is what is shown as book 3 in the series. And the way that this series works is these first 2 books follow 2 main perspectives, and by the end of the second book, their story is complete. Then in the third book, you follow different characters, but they're set within the same world, and those characters' plot lines are influenced by the events that occur in these two books and a completed story within those two books. And the two main characters are Arin and Lara. Arin has this kingdom, the Bridge Kingdom, that is essentially not able to be conquered. And that is in part due to how well he has managed to keep his kingdom afloat and also maintain the secrets of this essentially impenetrable force. And then Lara is somebody from a different kingdom who has been taught her whole life that Arin and his people are responsible for the hardships of her people. And it is significant that when she fulfills a marriage alliance and is married to Arin, that she find out all of his secrets, find out how to conquer this island, report that information back to her father, and then he can conquer them. Then when Lara and Arin actually meet, he is very suspicious of her, and she is trying to gain all the secrets she can to report back, but at the same time, she's starting to discover that perhaps she has been fed lies and not everything is as she was told. After that, we have Spin the Dawn and Unravel the Dusk. So when this first came out, it was marketed as Project Runway meets Mulan, and that is because there is a competition setting at the beginning for somebody to become the Emperor's new tailor. Our main character decides to take part in this competition in place of her father or her brother. It is believed that it is one of them who has been responsible for the amazing tailoring and sewing and creation of a lot of things within where they live, but it's actually our main character who is responsible for this, but she can't really take credit because she as a girl isn't supposed to be running their shop and taking care of these sorts of things and having this particular skill. So that is why she disguises herself as a boy to go into this competition. However, the second chunk of the book definitely turns more into a traveling, whimsical love story. And if you are somebody who likes competition, but you also like the other thing, then this is probably going to be very appealing to you. I think that it's very much this sort of romantic story, and that's not really what everybody's looking for. And I don't mean literally a romance between the characters, which does exist, but more so that there is this sort of romantic feeling to the story. There are grim fairy tales, and then there's what feels like these kinds of fairy tales, where everything has just got this, even when things are looking down, there's something about it that's sort of beautiful and sweeps you away. Even though everybody probably knew that this was coming, I still had to include it because it is a duology that I quite like, and I know a lot of you love it too, and I know a lot of you who haven't read it are interested in it, and that would be the Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo. So Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom chronologically take place after the events in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. You can read these separate. I do think that to have a really good understanding of the magic and some of the things that are referenced in this one, it's helpful to read Shadow and Bone, but you don't have to. And in this one, we follow a total of what are basically 6 main perspectives over the course of the duology. And originally, the setup is this heist story. However, I think what pulls a lot of people in and is the reason why a lot of people love this duology is because of how we examine these characters, how we dive into their backstories, and also the exploration of trauma that you get throughout this duology. And if you like character studies, and if you like the world that Leigh Bardugo has set up within the Grishaverse, then definitely give Six of Crows a try. Last for today, we have For the Wolf and For the Throne. This is an adult fantasy series, although I think if we had a formal new adult age range, that this would probably fit pretty cozy in there. But regardless, the story it's set up is somewhat of a Little Red Riding Hood and Beauty and the Beast retelling hybrid. And we follow this girl named Raybearer, who is destined to be sacrificed to the wolf. So her and her sister, one of them is for the wolf and one of them is for the throne. Obviously, Raybearer is for the wolf and her sister is for the throne, meant to rule. And neither sister really wants this fate, but Raybearer has decided, this is what I have to do, and she doesn't really fight it. Her sister does not want this to happen. She's trying to find anything possible to keep her sister and to get her sister back. But her sister decides this is what needs to be done. She sacrifices herself to the wolf, this mysterious individual who lives within this mysterious forest. And when she arrives, things are not as they seem. He is not as he seems. And there's definitely more going on than she could have ever imagined. I think the first book is about half and half fantasy and romance. And then the second book, I would say, is more fantasy. There is a romantic subplot, but I think the one in For the Wolf is a much bigger deal. Just that heads up, if you're somebody who thinks that the romantic aspects of the first one are appealing, just know that the second one, you're going to kind of lose some of that. And then if you're somebody who wants more of the fantasy, know that if you read through the first one, you're going to get more of that in the second one. That's it for 10 fantasy duologies and 1 science fiction. If you're interested in any of these, I will have purchase links in the description bar down below. Feel free to mention any other duologies that you've picked up, both for me to check out, but for anybody else who comes to this video. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.